This lesson will discuss the IndexOf function as part of the string that we've been talking about for the past few lessons. Before I start talking about the function, let me start talking about the indexes again. Just as a quick review, a string is actually made up of many characters, and each character has an index number that specifies its location in the string. So let's jump down to this word function, F-U-N-C-T-I-O-N. The first character always has the index number 0. Since we start counting at 0, each letter thereafter increases by 1. So the second character has index 1. The third character has index 2, and so on. The last character will always be, or the last character's index will always be the string's length minus 1. Let's jump into an example now that demonstrates how the IndexOf works. The IndexOf will search for a string and tell us the index that it is located at. For example, if I wanted to find the index of C, it would return the number 3. If I wanted to find the index of N, the first version of IndexOf will find the number 2, or return the number 2. The second version of IndexOf, which I will show you as well, could also give us 7, which would be because there are 2 n's. And the second version of IndexOf will let us be a little bit more flexible and start searching from a later position. If I were to search for the letter Z, which is not in my string, IndexOf will return -1. -1 indicates that a string that you desired was not found. Let's jump into the code. New project, Visual C#, console application. I'm going to call it string IndexOf example 1. Just make sure it's on your USB key in the correct folder. Press OK to start it up. Okay, so for this example, I'm going to get the user to type in a string. I'm going to save it in a string variable, and I'm going to assign it using console.readline so that I can get the user's input. Now I want to find out if certain characters exist in my string. That uses the IndexOf character again. Remember, the index is a number. It's actually an integer number. It can't really be a decimal number to specify the position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an integer variable. And I'm going to find out where the location of the Z is. So I'm going to call it int IndexOf Z. And here's what the IndexOf function looks like. So I'm going to type input because that is the string that I want to search through. IndexOf. Okay, there's actually many different versions of IndexOf. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find a string inside of it. I want to search for Z. Not just any Z, a lowercase z. Remember that strings are case sensitive in C#, which means that a small z is not the same as a large Z, a capital Z. Now I'm going to print out the index. So that means I'm going to use console.writeLine, and I'm just going to write IndexOf Z. Now when I run this program, first of all, I'm going to show you what happens when there is no Z. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, enter, -1 or -1. Okay, so when there is no instance of the string that you want, it returns -1. Z, Z, Z. Now let's try ZAB. Enter. 0. Now 0 is not an error. Remember that the first character in a string starts off with index 0. So this actually found it for me. Let's see if it works if I type in AZB. 1. A is 0. Z has index 1. So this seems to be working correctly as well. So there's index of. It's pretty straightforward, I think. But what happens when I have ZZA? It returns the index 0. Now I have two Z's in this input. So how can I find this index of the other Z? That requires a second version of index of. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make another integer variable. So I'm going to store the index of the second Z if it is in the input. Well, how can I make sure that it's actually in the input? Well, remember that if it's not in the input, it will return a negative 1. So first of all, I'm going to do a check. Check that there was a Z in the input before checking for a second one. So that's an if statement to do a check. If index of Z does not equal minus 1. Now you could also use greater than minus 1. You could use greater than or equal to 0. It doesn't really matter. I'll start it off with my curly bracket. And then now, if there was an index of Z, I can check for a second one. So that's another integer variable. And here's the second version of index of. Second version of index of first requires you to type in the string that you want. I want the letter Z, small z. The second number that goes in, or the second thing that goes in the brackets, is an integer, and it's the start index that you want to go from. Now if I want to search for the second Z, it's got to be after the first Z. And the index of the first Z is stored in index of Z. Now if I started at index of Z, it wouldn't actually be past that first Z. So if I just add 1 here, then it should go past the first Z. So let's take a look. Console.writeLine, index of second Z, close off my if statement. Let's run it. ZZA. So it should print out two numbers. The first number, 0, is the index of the first Z. The 1 is the index of the second Z. Seems like it's working perfectly. But wait, let's just try out one more test. What if I just type in ZAZ? 0, 2, okay. Looks like it's good. So 0 is the first index, or the index of the first Z. 2, index of the second Z.